You ready?
Yeah.
You ready? All right, hold on. Here we go.
What's going on, everyone? It's the My Aggie Nation podcast. I'm Travis Brown with the Eagle on this lovely Zoom chat down there on his sky cam. That is one President Zachary Taylor. What's going on, Zach?
I'm doing good, buddy. Yeah, my computer camera doesn't work. It doesn't have one, actually, my monitor. So I have a separate camera that's hooked up, and the only place to put it is up above me. So
It kind of looks like a security camera. Like you need one of those. You need like a ruler in the background, a yardstick, so you can tell how tall people are when they come in the door.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, to keep an eagle eye on possible folks stealing things from a store. Yeah.
Speaking of an eagle eye, also in this podcast, we have the Eagles' Alex Miller. What's going on, Alex?
Oh, just avoiding the police scanner this week so that we don't have any issues with that. I'm in an undisclosed location inside the Eagles' offices.
Well, you just said you're inside the Eagles' offices, so it's kind of disclosed.
It'd be kind of easy for Travis to find you, is what he's saying.
Yeah. So this is the crew, the podcast crew. We're glad to be here this week. Talking a little soccer to start off. A&M women's soccer. They played TCU last weekend. Number 3 ranked TCU beat them 1-0 for the final regular season game of this extended regular season that went both fall and spring because of COVID-19. They'll head into a selection show on Monday with a really good RPI, top, I believe 5th in the nation RPI, and one of the best programs coming out of the SEC as well. So they're poised for what could be a long run through the NCAA tournaments. Their freshman, now striker, was a central midfielder, Barbara Olivieri, joined us. She is leading the team in points and doing a lot in her first season here in Aggie land to acclimatize to college soccer quickly. So here is my interview with Barbara Olivieri. What is this? I know it's a freshman year, so you don't really have much necessarily to compare it to, but like, how weird and different has this season been from maybe what your expectations would have been?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, COVID has been a huge impact on the way that, like, the program is run in certain things and, socially distancing and all that stuff. But definitely made the best of it, and we knew that was going to be, like, a big thing, and just kind of staying with it and not letting that affect, how we play on the field. And so, I mean, it's been crazy, just, getting tested, like, weekly, multiple times, and just everything is just really different. But, I mean, we've handled it well, and yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then not to mention going through, like, kind of your normal fall, as normal as you can say it was, fall schedule, and then playing a conference tournament, and then coming back and getting spring soccer. Just on that level, what has that been like, being able to kind of have a year-round season?
Yeah. So, because we're supposed to be in off season, but I mean, it's really about, winter break. We had like a really long one because of COVID, and so it was really just kind of like maintaining that focus that, we're not going to have an off season. We're going to still play games that really matter in terms of like rankings and then the NCAA tournament. So we knew that that was going to be super important to just like stay focused, and it's been hard not having like a break really, but and then fall's coming next, so we're gonna have just 3 straight seasons of soccer. So it's fun, but also just like keeping in mind that we need to stay focused for that.
How impressed have you been with playing a fall season and then coming back in the spring, where, like you said, rankings and things for the NCAA tournament matters? And you lose Jimena and Allie, 2 of your really key players, to like professional soccer, and y'all have still seemingly been able to maintain that same level of competitiveness and success.
Yeah, it's obviously, sad, seeing them, but also like happy seeing them do their thing in pro soccer. But yeah, they were 2 big, like leadership roles on the team, but I feel like we've definitely done well to keep that going. And also Taylor Zemer, I mean, she's kind of the oldest one on the team right now. So, but yeah, just making sure to just keep that leadership role going, and they've done well to, teach us. They were super big role models for me personally, and I know for the rest of the team. So, yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, and I don't mean to harp on it again, but it just seems so crazy. I mean, if you're, fall of your senior year in high school, if someone would have told you, okay, so first year of college soccer, you're going to play year-round, and two of your best players are going to play for the first half, but then go pro, and they're not going to be there for the second half. I mean, what would your reaction have been?
I mean, I would have been I don't even know. I would have told you that's not. No, you're lying to me. That's not. But yeah, I mean, and then COVID happened, so yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. How big was that game last weekend? Beating such a highly ranked team and doing it as the last kind of hurrah as you head into selection show in the NCAA tournament. What did that do for momentum, for confidence, for ranking, for all the above?
Oh, that was, an amazing, important win. We played so well. I mean, that was one of the best games we've played this half of the season for sure. And we knew how big that game was going to be. We were, I think, maybe 10th in ranking, and now we're up to 5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it was huge for ranking. And even it gives us a chance, I think, to have a bye week at the tournament. So, yeah, I mean, and confidence-wise, too, I mean, we know, we've been playing these other schools, but, beating a big school has been, like, an extreme boost of confidence, and we just know that if we can do well and we can beat and dominate a team that's, really good, then, in the tournament we can do the same. So,
have you been surprised at how well and how quickly you've been able to adapt to SEC caliber, top 10 division caliber soccer in just your freshman season?
A little bit. I mean, it's definitely different. So yeah, I mean, I guess I am, but it's been easy. I feel like with just the players around me and I mean, kind of, I guess.
Yeah. What's been the most unexpected part about college soccer that you just would not have known would be a good thing or a bad thing, or just any aspect that you would not have been able to comprehend heading into it that you now go, oh, that's something?
I'd say, yeah. I'd say just being quick, like you have, especially playing forward now, I have limited time. I have limited time to shoot the ball. So just like taking less touches, making quicker decisions. So I think the speed of play is definitely a big thing. Mm-hmm. That's changed.
I'll apologize. Like I said, I haven't been able to keep tabs as much as I have. So you've moved kind of from that 10 roll up to like a 9 or a 7?
Yeah.
Gotcha. How much were you like playing center forward through high school, through club ball and whatnot? Mm-hmm. How much experience do you have there?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been playing. I played forward before I played midfield. So yeah, when I was little, playing club, like little league club, yeah, I was forward. I mean, until I think like later in my club days, I guess, and in high school, I played more midfield, but I did still play forward. So yeah, I mean, I have good experience in both. Did
dropping back into that 10 in a position where maybe you do have a little bit more space to create and have a couple of touches, do you think that kind of helped you get acclimatized to this level of soccer, to where now when you are called upon to play forward, you have a little bit more experience on your belt when you are in those one touch and quick type situations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, because both positions are close, but they're really different in a lot of ways. So, I feel like playing one helps with the other and vice versa. So, yeah.
What's your level of excitement heading into Monday and getting to do the selection show stuff for the first time?
Oh, really excited. Really, really excited. Nerve-wracking. I think we're going to all watch it together in the team room. But, yeah, it's exciting.
How much does your mind kind of race about all the scenarios and the numbers and the RPIs and whatnot that where y'all could possibly be, or do you just kind of not think about that and wait for it just to happen?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think about it at all. I just kind of just go with it, and it's just one game at a time. Really, I don't really think about that much.
Mm-hmm. What are you looking forward to most as y'all get started in the NCAA tournament?
Just getting there and just focusing up mentally, winning, just ready to play that first game. Really excited to play that first game. And just, I guess, when we know who we play, but yeah, just the first game, I'm excited.
If you could summarize just kind of the whole season up to this point, with like what kind of the things that stood out to you the most, how would you do that?
I would say that just kind of confidence as a team. I feel like after the loss to Rice, I feel like that was a big hit to the team. We were we gotta step it up. We gotta just kind of play how we play, and so after that, I just feel like the confidence level has gone up, which is good, and there's a good energy right now on the team. So.
Mm-hmm. Did you set any kind of statistical goals for yourself heading into this season at all? And if so, or if not, how do you feel like you stacked up with where you wanted to be at this point?
Yeah, not necessarily specific goals, but just, as a forward, obviously, just trying to score, being able to create plays and assists is really kind of my only goal, and just kind of working hard every game to the max and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then, I'm sure this is a dumb answer or a dumb question, but do you feel like this is a team that has the talent and the ability to sustain a pretty good run through the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And just especially how we're all just kind of taking things, I really do think that we'll do really well.
Big thanks for Barbara Olivieri for joining us. Again, we wish her and the ladies all the best of luck in their selection show. Again, coming off that big victory over number 3 TCU. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll keep it rolling. Again, you're listening to the My Aggie Nation podcast.
Welcome back to the My Aggie Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller with the Eagle. This is the video portion of the podcast. So for those joining us online, welcome. Over here is Travis L. Brown. He is with the Eagle, covering all things Texas A&M sports. And down below us, the man, the myth, the legend, Zach Taylor, joining us from the Skycam, as Travis said earlier on the podcast. But guys, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man.
Great.
You're looking so executive in your undisclosed location.
It is an undisclosed location, but let's jump into the action. Back in the podcast. Let's talk some Diamond sports, particularly A&M baseball. The last time we were on the podcast, we discussed how A&M was kind of getting into this stretch where they really needed to win some games. Again, a couple of series in the SEC play where they had a good chance to win. Well, they lost 2 or 3 at Missouri, and that started their 6-game losing streak. They bounced back Tuesday at Texas State, but it gets really tough this weekend. Now they're at number 1 Arkansas. Travis, we'll go to you first. Where's this A&M baseball team at, and what do they need to do as they enter kind of this gauntlet that we had kind of alluded to a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, Missouri and Alabama were 2 teams that they needed to take the series from if they wanted to get back into this race for a good RPI seeding in the NCAA tournament. And they lost 2 at Missouri, got swept by Alabama. First time getting swept at home since 2017 against Kentucky. And it was all a part of a 6-game losing streak, which was the longest skid that they've had since 2008. Interestingly enough, though, just on a side note, they had actually lost 8 straight games in 2008, but still made it to a super regional. They were all at the end of the season, and it included 2 games of the Big 12 tournament back then. But that being said, they're going to need a lot more go in their favor this year if they're going to try to get back into RPI contention. I believe the last time I looked, they were like at 127 right now. It could have changed a little bit. That was yesterday. But yeah, this is a pretty historical losing streak. They if you look at some of the stats on it, during that 6-game skid, A&M was batting 198 with 18 RBIs in through the 6 games. And then the staff's ERA was 6.35 with 24 walks and 14 hit batters. And when you look at when A&M has struggled this year as a baseball team, it typically has leaned back to the pitching staff issuing free passes early in innings, because more times than not, teams have made A&M pay when there's traffic on the base paths with a 0 or 1 outs, which is the mark of good teams. And that's exactly what's plagued them through the streak. Now, they won at Texas State. They turned things around, but they're heading into an Arkansas program this weekend that is going to be in contention with Vanderbilt for that number 1 national seed come NCAA tournament time. And they're not looking to lose any games, especially to an A&M team that has an RPI that low with the goals and aspirations they have ahead come postseason. So it's been a weird couple of weeks. Zach, what have you seen from this team?
Yeah, I'm afraid the Aggies might have missed their window when it comes to racking up the SEC wins. As you mentioned, just going to Missouri. And, I mean, who would have thought after blowing the Tigers out in that game 1 that they were going to end up losing the next 2? And then you get swept at home to Alabama, a decent team, but not a great team. The problem is you're going to be playing some great teams now. I mean, and you talk about the murderer's row. Obviously, you've got top-ranked Arkansas at Arkansas, which is never an easy place to play. And then you're at home to number 3 Tennessee. Then you visit number 4 Mississippi State. You host number 6 Ole Miss. You go to Auburn, who's not having a great year, so that might be a shot. But LSU is always going to have a lot of talent, and they might be down a little bit this year, the Tigers. But I mean, you're never going to count them out. And even though it is going to be at Bluebell, I mean, that's still going to be a really, really hard series to win. So I think the Aggies might have missed their window if they're going to make some noise in the SEC. So. I mean, right now you're thinking about maybe the SEC tournament. Maybe that's something you're going to do. But going back to what you had mentioned in the pitching, Rob Childress has been great at replenishing this pitching staff. It seems like year in and year out, he's going to have a couple of guys who are going to get drafted high. They're going to be his weekend starters. Bryce Miller has the stuff, but has not been able to perform the way that they would have liked. This year, I mean, everybody thought, okay, they're gonna drop down. They're gonna dip down a little bit in talent. Asa Lacy, had been tremendous. He's a bona fide ace in collegiate level, and now he's gone. So how are you going to rebuild? And in the past, they've been able to do that. This year, it just has not clicked. Will it be able to click sometime against these really, really, really good teams? I don't think so. If it hadn't happened yet, I don't think it's going to happen as they go forward. The offense has performed decently well. I mean, I'm going to say that they've been knocking the cover off the ball every which way but loose, but they still really looked good. But the pitching, is as strange as it is to say, especially about an Aggie team, the pitching just really hadn't been there. And yeah, as I go back to, I think it might be a little too late, because even if you do play really good ball against these teams, you could still drop 2 out of 3.
Offensively, this isn't 2019. I know we've talked about this before. 2019, the year they went to the Morgantown Regional, and they went through a really dry spell through the SEC tournament hitting-wise. They even admitted themselves leading up to that the pitchers knew they were going to have to win these games, and there was a lot riding on those arms to keep the score low because the offense just wasn't going to produce. That was a bad offense. This offense can produce runs. And, when you look at like the Friday night game in Florida, they scored 4 runs, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
4 runs is enough to win you a Friday night SEC ball game. It's just the pitching, and you nailed it with the starting pitchers, because I thought that Bryce Miller was going to be a great ace. I thought Jonathan Childress might have slid into that number 2 role over Dustin Signs, because he looked like a little bit of a world beater at the end of last season when he came back and the start, and that he had that stuff. Well, I think he's been experiencing a little bit of dead arm, and he's moved his way back into the bullpen because he can't find that consistency. Dustin Signs has been about the only consistent starting arm, and well, you can even argue Nathan Detmer, from what he's been able to do, has been pretty darn consistent. But the difference with this team in years past is that Rob Childress doesn't have a bullpen. He has about 3 arms in that bullpen that he can somewhat rely on, and Chandler Joswalk, Alex Majors, and Mason Ornelas. And even at times, those guys have been shaky. And so he's having to overuse those 3 guys, especially Chandler Joswalk, in throwing Tuesdays and twice on the weekends. And it'll be interesting to see if his arm can maintain that kind of workload through the season, because you talk about, if the only way to postseason is in the SEC tournament, the way that you win those tournaments is with pitching and pitching depth. And I don't know that they have the pitching depth to make a run through a tournament like that, because they don't really have the pitching depth to make it through a weekend series.
Yeah. I mean, and like I say, it's going to be very telling this weekend. Can they make any kind of noise against Arkansas? I mean, even if you win 1 out of that series, that I think would be a positive. I know that saying a series loss it should never be a positive, but with the way that things have gone recently, if you can take 1, maybe even 2 against the top ranked team at Baum Stadium, you're doing pretty good. So we'll see. But I mean, especially this year, it seems like the SEC. Not going to say that the SEC's never the best conference in baseball year in and year out, but I mean this year especially. When you look at the top 10, I mean, I already ran down the numbers. The teams that are ranked that A&M is going to be taking on, it really is a murderer's row.
You could have 5 SEC national seeds this year, easily, going into that top 16 of the NCAA tournament. Other thing to look at that we will probably discuss and talk about a lot more as we get on the line, but worth noting that head coach Rob Childress' contract is up this June. And so we'll be curious to see how a season like this can affect anything with that position moving forward. But like I said, that's a conversation for a little bit further down the line. Alex, what else you got for us?
Yeah, across the way, the A&M softball team, they're hosting Ole Miss this weekend. They run-ruled Sam Houston on Wednesday night. This Ole Miss team's pretty good, and on Wednesday, I think Cease wrote in a story about how pitcher Mackenzie Herzog, she kind of got a little bit of her mojo back. Granted it's Sam Houston State, but her last 4 outings just weren't that great after she had been pitching really well for the Aggies in the circle, really emerged as their ace. A&M softball, they're 27-11. They're 5-7 in SEC play, but they've only won 1 series when they swept South Carolina on the road. And so, you look at where A&M's going. They've got a home series against Ole Miss, and then they go on the road at Mississippi State, who I believe is last place. Yeah, they're last place in the conference at 0-9 before they close the regular season with series against Kentucky and Florida, who are both easily in contention for national seeds, or top 16 at least, especially Florida. But, this is kind of a big 2-week stretch for the A&M softball team to kind of make a move forward, try and get some momentum as they approach the end of their regular season.
It'll be interesting to see, because the NCAA announced that both baseball and softball are going to have kind of fixed regional sites predetermined because of COVID. It'll be interesting to see if softball put in a bid to host, because you typically in years past, you get to host by merit. But this might be a year that facilities, the ability to socially distance, to have socially distanced areas for people to warm up, the fact that A&M has 2 fields that you can social distance for, if they would put in a bid and if they would get it, even if they necessarily weren't in that regional hosting bracket, that'll be something interesting to look at.
Yeah, and, looking at the RPI, A&M's 37th right now in softball RPI. I mean, definitely chances to move up. You sweep a series, you win 2 or 3 the next few weeks, go in, try and take a series against Kentucky, Florida. I mean, A&M can move its way up into that hosting contention. And yeah, I mean, Davis Diamond's one of the newest, brightest stadiums in the country. It's kind of an ideal place to kind of, if you wanted to put a predetermined site at hosting for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're not going to find a lot of stadiums that have, as many seats, especially in the softball realm as Davis Diamond does. And yeah, I didn't even think about that, Travis, but what you mentioned with the two fields, because you still have the old Aggie softball complex that you can play some games at possibly if you need to. If you're worried about fans going in and out, that's going to give you more time to clean things up a little bit. It's obviously not going to be on the same level as Davis would, but you can still play games there. It's still the same, close to the same dimensions and everything else. I got to looking, guys, on here and just wondering, because these two teams have been year in, year out. They're in the talks. They're going in an NCAA tournament. It's almost a no-brainer, I would venture to say, because of how often they go. So not counting last year, softball. Can y'all tell me when the last time was that Aggie softball missed an NCAA tournament?
Are they on a 14 straight streak?
Longer than that, I believe. If you're not counting last year.
I was going to guess 03 or 04.
2001.
2001.
Is the last time that Aggie softball did not make it to an NCAA regional. And then for baseball, it was 2006.
And that was Childress' first year.
Correct. That was Rob Childress' first season.
13-year streak.
Yeah. So every year but one, Rob Childress has led the Aggies to an NCAA tournament appearance.
Let's see what the current RPI is on A&M baseball. What'd you say? Softball was 27, Alex?
37.
37. As long as you win series, 37 you're in. That's you shouldn't have to worry there, especially with the amount of I mean, what was it? There was years where every single SEC team got in the tournament, or was it all but one? I think a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I think it was 2019, I guess.
So A&M, their RPI improved with a little bit with that win over Texas State to 115, but that's still well out of the realm of where they need to be able to be in.
You're talking Sam Houston
contention
because they lost. They lost to Texas State.
Oh, you're
talking about baseball. I'm sorry.
Baseball. Yeah. Baseball.
I blame myself for that because I flipped it back and forth between the two, so I confused myself. So
I shifted over to baseball.
That's right. Softball's got 37? Is that what you said, Alex?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just crazy with the fact that, like projected preseason RPI, A&M was ranked 13, and now they've dropped to 115. They had a low of 127 week 4 in RPI, week 2 after losing to Xavier, they were 148. So they went from 13 to 148 in the first week, and with Xavier, and have kind of been in an uphill battle since. After beating Texas, they got worked their way back up to 60, but the losing streak has not helped them RPI wise. Now, granted, and again, this isn't necessarily an argument for baseball, but this is something that even you can point to soccer that we talked about. RPI is not necessarily going to be such a strong factor in any of these sports committees making these tournaments. It's something that Bird Kuhn at volleyball talked a lot about as well, because some schools are playing conference only. Some schools are playing that they can play some non-conference and not. And if you're a school in a good conference that's playing conference only, your RPI is just naturally going to be better. And or if you're playing conference only and you're in a group of 5 conference, you might not even have a chance to raise your RPI because you're not going to play any quadrant 1 or 2 teams potentially. Right. So the committees have to look and evaluate a little bit more by eye test this year, because that RPI is a little bit misjudging, since some programs won't have the opportunity to schedule higher RPI teams if their conferences don't allow, or some will only play high RPI teams. Therefore, that'll skew the numbers in favor of them.
Yeah, and not saying that non-Power 5s can't be on television or a stream, but obviously Power 5s, at least when it comes to the Diamond Sports, are more readily available on the 4-letter network and places that folks can watch them. So, yeah, I mean, COVID, even though teams are playing right now, COVID is still making a huge impact, obviously on the fans and everything that goes along with the COVID-19 protocols, but also in the postseason.
That dovetails into something else that I've been interested in and wanted to talk about a little bit, and that's now that immunizations for COVID-19 are opened up to everybody 18 and older in the state of Texas. That seems to be the key towards bringing back a more normal college athletic seasons where you're not having to worry about, well, it's 2 days before a game. Is this game going to happen? Are we going to have to quarantine? What's going on with that? Immunizations seem to be the way to make that happen. I know there is some kind of company policy legalese with a lot of these coaches saying, well, it's certainly up to the players to make that choice for themselves, which good. That is a health decision. But is there any concern that if enough players elect not to get the vaccine, that these situations of quarantines and minimum numbers to participate in games getting canceled because of COVID-19 is going to continue on longer than we maybe necessarily thought with a vaccine coming out?
Well, there's that possibility for sure. We're not there in the locker room. We can't hear a lot of those guys speaking with one another and get their thoughts or their feelings. But, a lot of the players that we've talked to, or at least Jaden Peavy, I know seemed like he was a pretty big advocate for going and getting it. And I would think that there's quite a few other players that are willing to do it as well. Now, if there are players who are kind of hesitant and they're balking on it, and then you start seeing games being canceled, games being postponed, whenever the COVID-19 protocols are still popping up and still wreaking havoc on the schedule, if that does continue to be the case, then I think you will start seeing more players saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the vaccine. But, I understand that there's some trepidation just in the general public, not even talking about athletics, but just in the general public about people possibly getting a vaccine that has been put together for so quick. But I really like when you posed that question to Jimbo Fisher last week. I really liked his answer. I know that is kind of legalese, but he said basically we're going to provide these guys with as much information as we can. It's not a deal where we're saying, all right, do you want the vaccine or not? We're going to say, here's what's available. Here's what you can expect as far as possible side effects, because I know people that I've talked to that have gotten it, it's treated them differently. Some have kind of had some, been having feverish symptoms, that sort of thing, following the second shot. Here's what we know about it. Here's what you can learn from it, and then allowing those individuals to make decisions. At least at this point, I think is the right move. Now, as I said, if it does come a time where games are still being canceled, things are still being postponed, and also too, if you're going to talk about contact tracing, I mean, could you say if a player that has not received the shot gets COVID, but has been hanging out with players who have received the shot, are they still going to be forced to be quarantined?
Yeah, and I don't know, and it'll be interesting to see if the universities keep a track of how players will be immunized, because I talked with Ross Bjork a couple weeks ago just about some of this stuff, and he said initially, this was several months ago, that they're not sure yet if they're going to track who's been immunized or not. But that seems like something that would need to be important because of those issues. But again, and there's a lot of science and a lot of things that are well above our pay grade on how this works. If we're going to need boosters, if we're going to need to get the vaccination once a year, like a flu shot, how long the vaccines will last. But yeah, it's just curious. I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of these locker rooms to see how these coaches are treating, passing along this information, like you've said, and giving the players the best information and the best, and what their advice is on these issues moving forward.
Well, and something that, could end up superseding all of this is the thought of, are universities just going to require students to have gotten the vaccine before they return to campus? I'm reading an NPR article right now, and Duke University and Notre Dame have already said, hey, we're going to require y'all to get the vaccine before you come back for the fall semester. It lists several other universities, and they're mostly private schools, but vaccination requirements have been commonplace for universities for years now. I mean, I can remember getting a meningitis shot before I went to A&M as a freshman. And so, I'm curious to see if the universities will have to require students to get it before they can come back for fall classes.
That'll be interesting, and not to get dip too far into politics, because that's not what we necessarily do on this podcast. But Greg Abbott, has already come out with executive orders saying that they're not going to allow vaccine passports and those kinds of things that make you have to determine if you've gotten it or not to get into, let's say, a sporting event or a concert or work or something like that. So I'd find it would probably be a pretty tough uphill legal battle in the state right now for any public state schools to try to require vaccines for students to return. That I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen, but there'd probably be some pretty good legal battles back and forth on that before something actually concrete sticks.
Yeah, would be interested to see if any of the private schools in Texas start requirements. Again, I know that there's going to be people that are all on all sides of the spectrum, but it is kind of crazy, like Alex just mentioned, how many vaccinations, because I remember, going before public school and saying, hey, you need to be sure that you're up to date on all of these shots. Now, I think what people might have a different opinion in getting, say, like a tetanus shot versus getting a COVID vaccine is the fact that the vaccine for COVID is so new. And was put together so quickly. I guess that's why some individuals might balk at it. But, I have a hard time believing, though, that having a requirement or, like you talked about, a COVID passport, a vaccine passport would fly, especially here, given what the governor has said and, the fact that A&M is a public university. So I don't really see that happening. But like I said, I think the players will end up making that choice, because if things continue to be canceled, things continue to be pushed back, I think that players will eventually say, hey, look, we're going to have to get this or we're not going to be able to play regularly the way that we're used to. So I think that eventually the market will decide, so to speak.
I agree. Alex, you got anything else for us?
I think we covered all the bases today.
Y'all excited for spring game? Y'all excited for spring game flag football halftime extravaganza?
Who isn't excited?
Johnny Manziel playing quarterback for both teams.
Yeah, and we get to go see stretching on Saturday too. Did you guys get that email?
We do get to see stretching.
Yeah.
They're finally opening up one of A&M's spring practices for the midya to go out and watch. So we'll get to see some good stretching. Maybe get to see that. Okay. We make a lot of fun about going to spring and fall football practice because, in essence, when you're in the A&M media corps and you go do this, you see the same, mostly just the team stretching, maybe a few field goal kicks, and then a few of the same individual drills every day. So, yes, if you're a big diehard fan of the team, you might, but there's not a whole lot to gauge from it. We can't necessarily draw any huge conclusions from what we see. Case in point, with how much Tim Brewster was on Jay Sternberger 2 years ago in spring and fall practice, I thought he was going to be a bust because he was just dog cussing him left and right up everything. But it worked, and he turned out to be the spring MVP, and then went on to have such a great season at A&M. So, case in point, you don't get a lot. But that all being said, I miss the days, the greatest days of watching spring practice were the days of Noel Mazzoni and the trash cans with the holes in them. When the quarterback drills literally just consisted of like a trash can, like duct taped onto another trash can with a hole in it, and the quarterback's just doing like the Dr. Pepper scholarship contest before practice every day. That was peak spring fall practice watching to me.
Oh, the good days. The good days.
But is there a drill or a part that just really sticks out to you that this is the epitome, this is what makes this spring and fall practice?
You were talking about a few field goals, a few tackles, a few expletives being thrown out there. That's always a little bit fun to to hear, what might come out of Jimbo Fisher's mouth. That's always fun to kind of be there and be part of that. So, yeah, like you said, it's very limited. That or whenever you see your life flash before your eyes when there's a play that's coming in to wherever we're standing, and suddenly all the unathletic media members disperse like the parting of the Red Sea. So that's always fun to watch.
Hey, I will say this though. This is the first time that A&M has opened up practice to the media since A&M didn't do fall or spring practice last year. They didn't open it up fall last year. So this is the first time in a year and a half that we will have been able to go. And
fall of
so
2019.
It's been too long, boys.
It's been a long time, and it's hard for us to cover the team. Like we said, we're not in the locker room. We haven't been around the players as much as we normally are. And so hopefully this is a step forward, getting back to normal as far as access is concerned, and providing as good of content as we can provide with the access we're given. So
he's so youthful and unjaded, Zach.
So youthful, so bright-eyed. The world is still his oyster. He just doesn't get it yet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Alex. That is very true.
Yeah. I mean, Robert Sesson is 35, guys. Just keep that in mind. That's what it's done to him.
Yes, exactly. That each year the bill of his hat grows longer with each spring and fall practice. He has to endure
his Sandlot hat.
Yes,
pretty sure he's that kid.
Yes,
he is that kid.
Well, yeah, lots of fun to be had as we watch socially distanced spring football, get an idea of what we're going to pontificate on for the next 3 months with seeing, 15 minutes of quarterbacks throwing.
Yeah.
Who has the stronger arm? Who can hit the most trash cans?
Well,
I wish that was still a thing.
That is not always indicative, because everybody would have said Nick Starkel had the stronger arm than Kellen Mond. Mm-hmm. We know how that worked out.
Well, and everyone probably would have said Nick Starkel had a stronger arm than Trevor Knight.
Yep, that too.
Because I think that was the Trevor Knight year was the Dr. Pepper contest trash can holes. Anyway,
I do miss Noel Mazzoni.
Yeah, remember that one time on the podcast when we tried
this one time on the podcast? Yes, where we just basically played Noel Mazzoni bits. That
we played his jokes with a laugh track and called it the College Station Comedy Club or something.
Yeah. That was in the podcast infancy. I believe I still have some of those.
Those were the good old days.
Those were the days.
I don't actually think those made it over to the conversion to Apple Podcasts, so maybe it's gone and lost forever.
Darn. What it is.
Well, it's another podcast in the book. There's no bits on this one, just real hard-hitting sports facts. We'll be back next week. We'll probably get into a little bit of draft talk.
Oh yeah, it is coming up.
Draft talk. So that's coming up. We'll get into that. Those big baseball series this weekend and continuation of spring ball as well as softball. So tune into those things, and we will be back. For Zach Taylor and Alex Miller, I'm Travis Brown. This is the My Aggie Nation podcast. We'll see you next week.
It seems like every day, everything just has a way to burst at the seams. But if we don't watch what we're doing, our hearts will get ruined by silly things. Good love ain't easy, girl, we know that's true. And if we want to keep it, we gotta watch everything that we do, yeah. Don't wanna make sure, my baby, make sure you're sticking with me. Don't wanna make sure that we'll be